C2 Wrestling Podcast, CTD and Snowden. We're back. Episode, I don't even know. It's been forever since I've even said what the episode is.
It's
The only
somewhere between episode 6 and 500. Yeah.
it's somewhere in there. It's somewhere around there. The only way I know is when I go to create the little two box for the
Uh,
display background and I go, oh, I got to add one. Delete, add a number. So whatever that number says right below me, that's what podcast it is. Also in the title. Plenty to talk about. Just over 3 weeks away from WrestleMania. The Mania build is interesting. We know the direction for plenty. There's still some stragglers, and it's now kind of at that cutoff point where if something is not being built, it's probably not going to be built. So it gives us plenty to talk about today. But first and foremost, it may be interesting because we're talking about Gunther, and this is a Gunther Stan account, but Gunther would understand that the Gunther Stan account cannot go further until we know how Snowden's doing today.
I am doing a-okay. Another day in the life. I got a tummy full of Taco Bell. Mm-mm. As I sip my soda. So I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain. Uh, we talk a lot of food in these live streams that we do for these PLEs. So tell me your favorite Taco Bell item. Leave it in the comments down below. I want to know what your favorite Taco Bell item is. But it is the road to WrestleMania. We have some more pertinent news to get to, and that is all things WrestleMania. One glaring thing, though, that we will probably mainly discuss throughout this entirety or entire pod, I should say. But the closer we get, man, the more those hairs on my arm start standing up. It is Mania season. We really are inching there. It's going to be April 19th and 20th like that. And we're going to be sitting here watching Oba Femi versus Brock Lesnar, Orton versus Cody Rhodes, years in the making, CM Punk, Roman Reigns. Like, we are shaping up for a great WrestleMania right now.
It really is one of those, like, the card's going to be pretty stacked. I
Mm-hmm.
think Cody said in an interview a few weeks ago that it's like a sleeper mania.
Yep.
And he said it kind of sounds like a bad thing, but as it all plays out, he's like, I think this is going to be a mania that people really latch onto. And we've said for a while, even if the buildup isn't that great, like we feel pretty good at Mania itself being really good. And I think we're going to get that. I think we're going to get two solid shows. They know they need to improve on what happened last year. And they're going
Yeah.
back to Vegas to right the wrong. I feel really good about it. And I don't want to spend the 2 nights thinking about how next year is not going to feel like Mania, how next year Mania is going to be on and it's going to look like this outside when Mania starts, even though it's starting earlier, this year. I've got that Mania kind of feel to it. And where it really kind of set in, like, oh man, I've got that Mania feel, is I'm watching Raw and I'm like, I'm seeing people come out and I'm like, damn, I kind of want to order that shirt. Ooh, I kind of want that shirt. Like, oh, I'm on WWE shopping. I'm like, no, 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 don't be smart right now. Don't spend the money. You
Yeah.
just went to Raw, bought two shirts there, whatever. Thinking about it, it's like, oh, that's how I know it's Mania season because I'm sat here like, man, I want to buy shirts. I'm locked in on wrestling. Like this is Mania season. I need to get a trip to the mall, go to Hot Topic or
Mhm.
Pac Sun, see what wrestling shirts they've got, get a new one right before the show, whatever. Like I've got that feeling right now.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the merch actually, because it's very similar for me where I actually wanted to mention on the Raw review, but I forgot a very brief statement that the shirt Roman was wearing was fire. Like, I want that shirt. We're getting a new line of merch for a lot of these wrestlers. The shop for a long while, like, there's a good, like, I don't even think it's an exaggeration to say, like, there's a good 10 years there where you couldn't pay me to buy any of their merch. There was some rough ones. But over the last couple of years, they got some companies now, Ripple Junction, they're pairing with a lot of other places. They're making some fire merch. It really makes me want to get something, but I also don't want to have to open up a mortgage. So I'm kind of refraining from buying off WWE Shop. Hot Topic, they got some shirts, but it's like a quarter ply shirt from Hot Topic. Paxson's got some good deals, but I do need to get something come WrestleMania. And the closer we inch to it, the more hype there is around guys like Oba building up for Mania, I really want to dig into the shop and see if I can get a good Oba shirt.
Yeah, I hope they put out something really good after he beats Brock. That would be quite
That's kind
nice.
of why I want to eat too. Like I want to see like something better might come after.
Yeah, exactly. I like thinking of Mania, it being Mania season. You start to think of like recent Manias, like where were you? Who were you with?
Yeah.
Whatever. And I don't know, like the last few Manias, don't get me wrong, not all of them have been like glamorous where I'm like watching in this great environment. I watched one Mania, 38, I watched in a hotel room both nights.
Yeah.
I had to watch it on a little computer. I didn't get to like really relax and enjoy it. And it was one of those where I got back to the hotel like right before it started. It wasn't like I could really just have Manias on all day, whatever. Last year's Mania, although it stunk, the weekend was fun.
Hmm.
And being with the guys and watching old shows, whatever, just talking wrestling the whole time. This year's Mania, it's like I just threw on Mania 20 right now. I've got about a month, I will call it 3.5 weeks, about a month. It's like I want to go through a good chunk of these manias, even if it's just background noise, even if while I'm
Hmm.
cleaning or doing work, I just want them on because like it's mania season. When it's the Rumble, I want to watch Rumbles. When it's SummerSlam, I want to watch SummerSlams. It's Mania, I want to watch Manias.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you also mentioned briefly there just WrestleMania 38 because I wanted to mention off the back of you talking about Cody Rhodes saying that Mania 42 is kind of a sleeper mania. I think Mania 38 was the last like sleeper mania we had. 39 was set up pretty good. I think we all knew that was going to be a good mania. 40, there was a lot that could have went wrong, but it all went great. And it's realistically the best mania of all time. 38, I don't think on paper, like, yeah, we had Stone Cold only for like 6 days realistically prior to WrestleMania. There was an idea Cody Rhodes was coming back, but nothing was locked in. Like, that ended up being one of the greatest manias ever, and it was pretty much a sleeper build. I feel very similar with Mania 42 that they're setting up the things that we want properly. There was a lot of like, man, if they don't do but Brock, what a mistake that would be. And they're doing it. So there's no mistake. There's no wrong. Everything is right now. Even if the individual builds aren't spectacular, we're off the back of Monday Night Raw talking about how the Roman Punk build is not that great. It's not good right now. It's still Roman Punk, and that is realistically the proper match for that championship going into this WrestleMania. Cody Orton, hotter than it should be. I don't think I anticipated that angle to take off as well as it has. Oba, man, there's a lot of wrestlers that are stars or have been stars in the past. What a fucking star. I don't think they've had somebody with this like feel that Oba has right now. Him coming out on Raw this past weekend doing the strut, and you got everybody in the crowd doing his strut already. The guy's over the moon. They're setting up a lot of things well. I do think we should get into maybe the biggest discussion around WrestleMania, and it's the omission of Gunther. Where is our boy? We said it last week after Monday Night Raw. If he's not on next week, hit that panic button. Now it's a problem. And he wasn't on Raw. Man, what a mistake it's going to be if he doesn't go at WrestleMania. I understand the plan on paper was Gunther versus Rey, and Rey is hurt. I understand Gunther versus Rey itself might have been plan B or C. I like to imagine WWE probably wanted Styles to run till Mania, and it would have happened at Mania if Styles wasn't so keen on getting out. So it makes me think Rey was plan B. I understand you only have so many people, but for a guy like Gunther, how do you not have another backup plan? How is there not another thing set in motion to make sure this guy gets on the card? I've said so many times if you don't have Oba against Brock, it's a bust. If Orton doesn't win, it's a bust. We're getting to another point where if Gunther's not on the Mania card, Is that the biggest miss ever?
It's one of them. Like it
It's one
truly,
of them. It is.
you're talking about someone who, in under a calendar year, retired Goldberg, retired John Cena, the greatest to ever do it, and retired AJ Styles. On top of that, having a world title run in the mix there. So that is
Two.
yes, I'm just going off like the
Yeah,
calendar
of
year.
course. Yeah. Yeah.
That is insane.
Hmm.
That like doesn't even seem fathomable. And
No.
now that's like a type of resume where yes, he is made, he is built, but he is like when you think of Mania right now, he's one of the names where it's like, oh, there's the Brock match, there's the WWE title match, there's the world title match, there's the Gunther match. That's how you have to be given his resume. So I just pulled up on my phone DraftKings article, just picked a random website. These are the announced matches, and then they listed some potential announced matches. You've got Punk Roman, you've got Cody Orton, Stephanie Liv, Jade Rhea, AJ Lee Becky, Brock Oba. So that's six matches
Six.
right there. And
Locked
we're
in.
guaranteed made.
Yeah.
Their potential matches: the Usos versus Division, Carmelo Ilya, Tiffany Stratton, Rollins Braun Breaker, Dom Balor, Drew Fatu, 10-man tag between Wyatt Six and MFTs, and Trick versus Sammy. So that's one, two,
Eight.
three, four, five, six, seven, eight. That brings you to 14 right there. And I don't know. There's some like the Wyatt Six match maybe gets bumped. You assume EO is on the card. And she's probably in a match against Asuka, and then also the women's tag titles. So maybe they get to 16 this year. Maybe it's 8 and 8. I don't know. It's starting earlier, so they have more time. But those are the names, and I read those off because those are the people doing something. Those are the people that, okay, I'm not sat here like yank. I've seen this on Twitter. Yank Ilya away from Mello and just run Ilya versus Gunther. No, like don't completely scrap some other story to try to salvage this situation that you've put yourself in. You know, it's kind of like in baseball where you have two people out of position instead of just playing one person out of position and having the other person be someone still in their same spot. There's not a lot of names for Gunther.
Mhm.
And I do want to discuss, some potential names. We'll get there in a second. I want to like more so harp on the magnitude of the situation we're in.
Yeah.
I love the career killer moniker. I love the career killer gimmick. You name it. But you book yourself into a corner by making that everything. Instead of just the main thing, they made it everything. And as soon as you make it everything, now your options are limited because we've talked about it plenty. There's plenty of people who might be on the verge of retiring, but they're not retiring tomorrow. And who's to say they're retiring on their terms? You don't want to also retire someone and then they just go and wrestle in AEW or something. So you got to still be realistic. They needed to find the balance where Gunther is known as the career killer, but he can still have normal feuds. And the Dragon Lee feud felt like we're kind of getting there. This is a story based on Dragon Lee was great friends with Styles, his tag team partner, former tag champion with him. Gunther disrespectful, retires him, you name it. So they're still attached to the career killer, but he's not facing Dragon Lee in a match where if Gunther wins, Dragon Lee's retiring. So you set yourself to start being in that spot where, okay, he can face other people. I list all those names. I don't expect any of them to pivot immediately and face Gunther. But when you set your plan, Mania, he's retiring someone. It's happening. Or so it seems. Styles maybe was the main option, Ray maybe the fallback option. That's even worse of a corner because now you're left with zero and there's options, some that I like, But I would understand you not running him on Mania because it's either rushed or it doesn't feel big enough. This is a guy who retired these legends, so he can't be in the Andre Battle Royal like this. He's now at a level that is some will never see, and it's to the fault of the creative booking, whoever you want to say. They put themselves here. This did not happen on accident. They put themselves in this spot by going too far in with the career killer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I stand pretty firm on the idea, and maybe it's easier to say this in hindsight, but the idea that we were right all along, where I mean, we could date ourselves back to even like WrestlePalooza, Octoberish, where I think back then there was a lot of what ifs surrounding the Rumble Mania. There's so many directions they can go. But when it really comes down to it, back then they had pretty decent ideas of what they were going to do. There's a reason Drew didn't really win the title back then. Like they kind of knew deep down, even as long ago as October, that Cody Orton at Mania is probably the route. Um, where I stand firm is that off the back of retiring John Cena, Gunther should have won the Rumble. I understand you have Roman and Punk here, and you have like an option there, but that is also Plan B. It was gonna be Roman and Rollins. That seemed all but get locked in until the Rollins injury. So even Roman Punk, as electric and as big as that is a backup plan, which is crazy. The way things have played out for everybody outside of Gunther have not been bad. But to drop the ball on Gunther like they are right now, it really makes me look back to that time frame and go, he should have won the Rumble. Even if he retired Styles in the same night, I don't give a fuck. Make him number 30. Who cares? At least he'd be locked into a big, big match, a title match, which I also agree. I like the career killer gimmick. I like it and all, but there is only so many careers to kill. At what point do you want gold again? It should have been after retiring John Cena. That's the biggest they get. Rey Mysterio is a legend, one of the most household names wrestling's ever seen, but he's not necessarily John Cena, unfortunately. It's not to that level. Uh, Goldberg is obviously the lowest tier out of the four potential retired names by Gunther: Goldberg, Cena, Styles, and Rey, but kind of went in reverse order from Styles to Cena to Rey. It would have held more value if Cena was the last one he retired and then he went back into the championship scene. But it is a tough spot where if Rey can't go, which if you can, you book it. You have to book it, obviously. It's similar to Braun coming back. If Braun gets cleared an hour before Mania start time, you make him face Seth Rollins. You don't even have to have any backup to it. You just put it on the card and you let the fans watch. It'd be the same just to get Gunther on this card. But if Rey can't go, it's tough, man. Opponents are thin because everybody else is pretty deeply tied. I would hate, hate, hate if they disrupted Ilya Carbello to have Ilya face Gunther. That is a WrestleMania main event level match. Not for WrestleMania 42, though. It doesn't make sense. I try to think of names, right? Who could Gunther get if Ray's not going to get? And a lot of the names I come up with aren't even necessarily jobber names, but it would be a job to Gunther in a sense because of the level Gunther is and it being at WrestleMania. I love Rusev. That's one of the names that you think of. You just think of names that are free for WrestleMania. Rusev being one. They'd put on a great match, I'm sure. Rusev is not winning that match. Like it would be the job to Gunther. Is that worth getting Gunther on the card? In my opinion, yes, because you have to have him on the card. I, insane to say that the Gunther match would be like 12 or 13 out of 14 on like my most anticipated matches at that point. I do have one specific name that I think of as a Rey Mysterio replacement. And I think this would be maybe the only answer for Gunther, but I want to get your opinion first on what you think. Like, where are his opponents? Who could they be? What do they do? What do you think?
I have a specific name that I will say in a moment.
Yeah.
The reason I don't think Ray is going to be cleared You
Agreed.
you compare it to the Rollins Braun Breaker situation. They are very confident Braun Breaker is going to be cleared. Like
Rollins is on TV.
Rollins is on TV. Hell, they've even said Rollins might not have been fully cleared once he started returning on TV. He hasn't even taken a
A
bump
bump.
yet, right?
Yeah.
Like he
Yeah.
hasn't done anything. He's just, hit some stomps and some chair shots. They haven't done a lick with Gunther. They haven't even had him in a vignette, anything to make you think he's going to be at WrestleMania. So the fact that we're in this stage means it's not even a thought of Ray being cleared in time. Like that's where I kind of leave it at because at the very least, you could have him on and he doesn't have to be talking about directly Rey Mysterio, but you can be put in a spot where I don't know, not that we don't expect him to be on Mania, but he's at least still in our minds. And if Ray's cleared, great. If he isn't, you still have Gunther on TV and it makes sense. And it takes what, all of 3 minutes? You've got a 2.5 hour show. You can't find 3 minutes for the guy who retired John Cena, AJ Styles, and Goldberg. I have a name, and openly, I understand this is not WrestleMania main event. This is not, we're not going to get that type of matchup because there's no one there. The biggest name possible for him would be LA Knight. And that's not going to happen because who knows if LA Knight's even healthy? Who
Yeah.
knows what's going on with him and his elbow? Because he hasn't wrestled since what, the Rumble or right after the Rumble in a tag match. It's been a few weeks since
Been
he's
a while.
really wrestled, and his elbow did not look great. I'm not going to make any assumptions, but if they felt that LA Knight would be a suitable backup option for Gunther, we would have seen it already. There would be something where LA's looking for an opponent, whatever. The name that came to mind for me, and maybe this is just me and my 2K universe mode brain, maybe this is just me and I would be locked in on this match and I would be interested. I feel like a lot of people would point to Penta. I feel like that would be kind of one of the first names. He doesn't really have a an opponent right now, which
Mm-hmm.
I assume he will. I'd be kind of surprised if Penta is not on Mania. Again, another name that wasn't mentioned in that projected matchups, whatever. But he's the Intercontinental Champion. And I think Penta versus Gunther is a lot less likely with Penta being the Intercontinental Champion because how can you have that match not be for a title? And right now, you can't have Gunther lose to Penta, and you also don't really want Penta to lose to Gunther. And this is a matchup that you save for later and make money. So you start thinking, all right, he's just feuded with Dragon Lee. You seem to be wanting to do something revolving luchadors if that's going to be how he starts the Ray feud, his Dragon Lee feud. I feel like Ray Phoenix would have been the guy where you can kind of
Interesting.
continue with the, you know, don't disrespect, now it's kind of like the trickle down. Like Dragon Lee was upset because he disrespected AJ, his partner. Well, Ray Phoenix is upset because Gunther disrespected Dragon Lee, but he also disrespected the mask and unmasked him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sacrilege. You can't be doing that. And you could have a few weeks where Dragon Lee probably slides into the Intercontinental Championship match if there is one. Ray Phoenix, I don't know if it's a lock, but I would be more inclined to have Ray Phoenix face Gunther and not be in any Intercontinental Championship mashup rather than Phoenix being in that Intercontinental title mashup and Gunther having nobody. That feels like the name where you can kind of continue what you're looking for in the long run with Gunther taking on Mysterio. To us, it's a big name, it's a big matchup. And I understand no matter who it is, you're not going to get that like Mania main event level match for Gunther right now.
Yeah, you're not. It's unfortunately not Mania main event level. Regardless, there's just you would the only way would, and they're not going to do this, and I don't advise them to do this, would be to slip Gunther into literally the Roman Punk match. Obviously, it makes no sense to do that. They won't do it. They shouldn't. So he's not going to have a main event level match. Ray Phoenix is an interesting choice. There's obviously a bit of ties there. The luchador thing with Ray, it does make sense. It would be great to get Ray Phoenix spotlighted a little bit as well. It's interesting. Penta is another name that I'm sure has been tossed around a bit. I do think Penta. I hope at least Penta makes the Mania card. I love this idea we've been pitching of a multi-man IC title match. Throw in Dragon Lee, Penta. Let's get some of the masked guys in there from all over, whatever. Multi-man match to some degree. The name that comes to mind for me against Gunther is different from Ray Phoenix, but similar in thought, where I think you can continue kind of what you have going on here, not specifically with Rey Mysterio, but with Gunther. Career killer. Again, that's the gimmick. Gunther's out here killing careers. Goldberg, Cena, Styles, and what would have been or will be in the future, Rey Mysterio. There's only so many careers to kill. Who else is almost done? Who else is going to retire? Not really anybody at this moment in time. If Sheamus was healthy, he's still got stuff in the tank. They wouldn't retire Sheamus yet, even if he could go. The name that comes to mind for me is Javon Evans. I think there's a story there with I'm killing this career before it even starts. I think you can run that angle with Gunther and Javon where they'll put on a pretty solid match. Javon is all over TV right now. He's clearly loved by fans, clearly loved backstage. That would be a big Mania debut for Javon. He doesn't need to win. Javon is so early in his career and the type of wrestler, gimmick, character he is, he can lose his next 100 matches and it doesn't affect him at all. You have them put on a clinic. Gunther obviously beats Javon, gets him in the rear naked or whatever. He chokes him out, whatever you do. And Javon gets maybe even written off for a little bit because of it. He's not out for a month even. Maybe it's even less than that, but it just kind of adds a little bit more to like the Gunther career killer gimmick. I don't need like a Javon Gunther feud to necessarily come out of it from Mania, but I do see a world where Javon comes back and they maybe do run it back at Backlash or something, or whatever. Doesn't need to be a 6-month feud, but it is tough to place Gunther on this card. And I do really think the more I say it and think about it, that Gunther versus Javon with that exact idea of there's no more careers out here to kill, so I'm not letting this one start. I think that's a good story.
Yeah, I mean, I would be all in on that. It'd be a great matchup for Javon. I feel he falls into the spot though where Trick is going to face some main eventers. Oba's obviously already facing one of the biggest main eventers they have. Javon, I feel like is going to be kind of sheltered from them, not because of a bad thing, but because there's such long-term stories you can do with him and some of these big names that I don't want to say you're wasting it, but you are kind of wasting it. Like Javon and Oba. I know Oba's pretty much a babyface right now, but Javon and Oba should not be a thing
Touch. Yeah.
for a while.
Years.
Yeah, yeah,
Literally. Yeah.
yeah. And then you build up that baby face. He finally beats him, whatever. That feels kind of where Gunther slides in. If LA Knight is healthy, like that
Uh-huh.
does kind of feel like they are.
It's an option for sure.
They're both. I'm sure there's some analogy that I can't think of right now, but they both don't have dance partners.
Yeah.
It's couples dance. Everyone's paired up. And they're the only two sat at the tables, and they go up. All right, well, we may as well go together. I think the easiest way to go about that and have it at least make somewhat sense is you have this street fight for the tag titles next week on Raw. LA Knight's going to be involved in some aspect.
Yeah.
And the story would say that he's more likely to cost the Usos because of the disrespect from Jay. Jay clearly kind of feeding back to Roman. Old school bloodline kind of starting to seep through a little bit. But what if he doesn't? What if he's still focused on getting revenge on the Vision and he's not fully into dealing with Jey Uso and the bloodline yet? And what if he does cost the Vision that match? And it's a big thing. And Paul Heyman's complaining to Adam Pearce. Pearce is saying, this is a match you asked for, whatever. They set up the rematch at Mania or the trilogy, whatever, where no one, everyone's barred. It is just straight up tag team title match. Winners leaves as the champion. And Heyman knows he's got an LA Knight problem. LA Knight is so focused on taking out the Vision. Braun Breaker is returning, but he's returning for Seth Rollins. And you're still kind of down a man. And we get what we've gotten in the past with Heyman and what they did with Bronson Reed teaming with the Bloodline. I need to pay for someone's services. We don't have Bronson Reed right now. I've got an LA Knight problem. Gunther, you talk all the time about how you don't care about certain things. You care about making money. I've got some cheddar for you. I need you to take care of LA Knight at WrestleMania. And it still
Mhm.
kind of ties in, like LA Knight's still feuding with Division. It could be something that you just do 2 weeks in advance. It doesn't need some 2 month build where Gunther's being paid by the Vision, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, it can just be fairly quick. Gunther cheats to win something, you know, maybe the Vision still somehow get involved or whatever. And you're still kind of saving LA Knight even though he loses at Mania. Again, losing to Gunther is not a bad thing. The guy is mega. If that's really not the route, like that feels like the only route for Gunther LA Knight to happen now with only 3 Raws left.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does. LA Knight is obviously an option on the table for Gunther if LA Knight can go. Uh, it's tough, man. I love LA. Obviously, Gunther Stan account. We love Gunther. Uh, LA versus Gunther doesn't like draw me in all that much. I understand you're out of options here and you got to get Gunther on the card. So I do like it and want it if that's the option. But I do find like the proposition of Ray Phoenix or Javon Evans a bit more intriguing because it does add a little bit of like freshness and like just wow, they're going a little bold here for this WrestleMania. Like Ray Phoenix is fucking an incredible talent. He doesn't have, the stock that LA Knight has quite yet. So it would be pretty bold for them to go Ray Phoenix. Javon, again, is so young and new. So it would be pretty bold for them to go with Javon. LA is pretty established. And again, it's no shade on LA at all, but LA is just the guy that finds himself most in the spot this year of like, man, sucks, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. We've said it before, and it's a bad spot for LA. Um, on Javon a little bit as well. He is a guy even more so than Ray Phoenix, where like a lot more than Ray Phoenix, even where like yeah, you want to save a lot of these big feuds. Javon and Oba should not wrap it up for a long time. Javon and Trick, Javon and whoever. There's plenty and plenty of names. There is a couple of those names though where there is long-term seeds, long-term stories that can be planted. If Javon did go against Gunther and Gunther beats him, and then, he beats him again, and then they don't wrap up for a while, and he beats him again and again, then by like it's been 6 or 7 years or whatever it's been until Javon finally gets that big championship win over Gunther down the line. Like there is a story to be told in that sense as well, but that's obviously like it's such long-term booking that you can't predict for it because who's to say it will ever play out exactly like that. So there is always the thought in the back of the mind of do we do this right here, right now? Are we wasting this if we do this?
With
Ray
Mania,
Phoenix.
oh,
What's up?
sorry.
No, it's okay. I was
Sorry.
just gonna say, Ray, Javon, and LA. I struggle to think of even a name number four.
Yeah. You took such a long breath there. I thought you were done. I didn't
Yeah, no,
realize.
I was like kind
Yeah.
of like that was
Yeah.
had to get that
Well,
out.
the interesting part with Mania, though, is after last year, it could be the fucking night before and a match just changes.
Yeah.
What was it? El Grande originally versus Ray, and then Ray gets injured,
Yeah, and then Ray Phoenix
and
replaced Rey
and well,
Mysterio.
then we thought it was going to be Vikingo, right?
No, I don't. I mean, Vikingo was
Or-
obviously there for the AAA signing at the time, but did we? I don't know if I ever recall thinking it was going to be
Like,
Vikingo.
like I feel like that was. Definitely not announced, but I feel like that was like a rumor that they were going to have it be.
Yeah, it definitely might have been. The more you say it, the more I think back to like obviously Triple H on the whole panel with all the
Yeah.
luchadors there, and I think like we all knew Mysterio was injured, and then we're like, what's going to happen? And maybe Vikingo was a thought at that point, but I'm pretty sure even well enough prior, they made an announcement that it was going to be Phoenix, so we all obviously knew that
Yeah.
at that point. But yeah, that was I mean, obviously it was due to injury. It wasn't really like a storyline plan. Bailey getting swapped out was a storyline plan. Like
Yeah,
these things do happen last
that's
minute.
that's a great point as well.
Yeah,
We could find ourselves in that situation. I think the most alarming part about it with Gunther is the fact that he's just not even on TV.
on TV,
Like
100%.
that's the alarming part because I can understand right now if you told me Javon Evans and what he's got going on with the New Day isn't on Mania, like I'm honestly probably leaning towards it's not going to be
Yeah,
with the amount of
yeah.
matches that are set up.
I think Javon
So
only makes it in a multi-man IC match.
yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. I'm trying to think of another example, but not every story on television right now is going to be WrestleMania. A good
yeah.
amount of them are. For instance, last week, Natty and Maxine
Maxine, I was
Dupree.
just gonna say, yeah,
I wasn't watching that match thinking this is finishing at Mania. I was watching that match thinking this is a story that's been going on Raw. Yeah, you were pissed. You were this should be the main event. But they're at least on the show. Like Gunther just not even being on. It's like that's the feeling of, it makes sense for a Royce Keys because he
uh-huh.
hasn't really fully debuted yet. He's not locked into anything. He just debuted at the Rumble and that's it. Gunther literally like finished a story with Dragon Lee, got on a flight and has not gotten another flight. And I don't blame
Yeah.
him because airports are a nightmare right now. I don't blame him. I doubt he's flying, the same flights that I'm flying, but we need him on that tour bus. We need him on a flight. We need him on the show. Outside of those three names that we mentioned, like the only kind of things that I can think of is where you're essentially telling the same story, just swapping out the person. Like, I am not saying Gunther's going to face Mr. Iguana or Psycho
Yeah,
Clown,
yeah,
but
yeah.
if you wanted to run with the disrespect lucha libre story, even though you've kind of been doing it with the El Grande story, you could slide one of those people
It
in
could be a
for Ray
luchador
Phoenix.
gauntlet match.
Yeah, exactly. He could
Yeah,
take on three of them, whatever.
yeah,
Outside of those three people, like Rusev would be heavily unlikely,
yeah.
especially, this situation. He's also a heel. The brand split's dead, so I'm not really thinking, obviously I
Right,
pitched
of
Ray
course, yeah,
Phoenix, so I'm not really thinking,
yeah.
oh, this has got to be someone. Then you start thinking, I guess the next option, you'd look at NXT, but NXT, Joe Hendry isn't going to face Gunther at Mania. NXT's now gone through this refresher that there's no one that's a baby face that can slide into this role to just pop in like Joe Hendry did. There's no one that kind of fits that mold. If Gunther was a baby face, you could have Ricky Starks, you could have Ethan Page, like you have a few other fallback options that are, if they were on Mania, that makes sense. I'm not expecting, you know, Ilya LaFleur to be facing Gunther and, trying to step up. Like those people just aren't there yet where it's even fathomable for that to happen.
I just got an update. It's actually there's a rave happening in Vegas during Mania weekend, so it's going to be Luca Crucifino versus Gunther.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I don't think
yeah,
NXT unfortunately has
yeah.
the
Wouldn't
power right
wouldn't
now.
wouldn't evolve that character has gone to.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, it's tough. I do think maybe that fourth name on the list. I mentioned Rusev earlier, but that's just like the first free name to come to mind again. Like I don't even think he's really number four, in that tier of people. I don't necessarily want it because I do agree what they're doing in holding off Royce Keys is the right move, but Royce Keys is probably your number four. Maybe it's the same thing I just said with Javon, where Gunther says, I'm killing this career before it ever begins. That's enough to make it happen, I suppose. There is a world where Gunther's not on TV, and then he does show up at Mania and just demands a match, and it's an open challenge, and that's where we get in that situation. It would have to be a little bit of a surprise, at least. I don't think Rusev would be the guy to answer that challenge. It would have to be Royce Keys or a Uber babyface Javon Evans or Jericho returns. Jericho's not even fifth or sixth on my list of opponents because I don't think it's happening. But I could see a Royce Keys maybe. That's after that, man. I really don't know if there's a name. I don't even want to go as deep as to like pull from TNA or anything because TNA also doesn't really have anybody that's like incredibly established. Jeff, you're really digging deep now. Like this is like we're on plan, XYZ at this point. Um, the overall point of this though, like Gunther has not been on TV in a while, and that is a bad sign. Seth has been on TV because Seth is going to have a match one way or another. Gunther not being on TV indicates no match. If he's not on Raw next week, give me a second panic button. We already are hitting that panic button because he wasn't on this past Monday. But if he's not on the next week, the only hope, in my opinion, is a Gunther Open Challenge of sorts. At that point, I don't think they have enough time to build really anything. Maybe they prove me wrong, and they hopefully do, but him not being on TV is a bad sign. It would be such a letdown if Gunther doesn't have a match, man. What would he even come back and like? When's Ray going to be healed then too? Like I'm imagining they're not going to have Ray retire at Backlash in Tampa. Like they would push that till SummerSlam as long as Ray can and all those things. So like, what does Gunther show up on the Raw after Mania, and what does he get into next? Even like they've unfortunately booked themselves into such a corner with Gunther that it's hard to get out of. I gotta say though, like just talking it over because we've said for a couple days now, like a week really, that like this is going to be the topic of our pod, being that he's not on Raw. I think I've convinced myself or ourselves at least that like those four names are the names. I don't think there's another option.
I don't think it's impossible the Penta match. Like I do think that
Yeah, I don't think
has
that's impossible either.
I do think that has a possibility. The issue is him being Intercontinental Champion, but shit, it wouldn't shock me if it was just a non-title match. Like who knows?
I would hate
They
that.
I
I
hate
don't
it
want
too,
Gunther
but
going for the IC title though either.
that too as well. But
No.
I can see it, still being an option for them and something that you can build quick, and it's still a crazy matchup. I do find myself, we talk about LA Knight and, not really loving the potential matchup or whatever. Some of these names that we mentioned, I know other people fall on the other end of this. To me, it sounds better because it means Gunther's on the card. Like, if you're telling me it's either him in that quick build, but he's on the show, versus him not on the show, I want him on and I want him winning. I don't care who he faces. So I'm taking that option. So yeah, a quick build of an LA Knight match. If it's my only option, yeah, I'm taking it. Like I'm starving. I'm not, beggars can't be choosers at this point. I know there's a large group, and hell, this group might even be in WWE that think if we don't have the perfect matchup or a matchup that really makes sense, it doesn't make sense to have him on at all. Bobby Lashley and LA Knight missed out on WrestleMania 39, and people were outraged, but they didn't. The stars didn't align for a certain matchup, whatever. Well, guess what? It's 3 years later, and we're still talking about those two not being on that card. And last time I checked, neither of them fucking retired John Cena, AJ Styles, and Goldberg. So, yeah, it's still going to be talked about. It's still going to be a thing. I think it is more acceptable if you do a quick story. Say you dragged out the Dragon Lee, no pun intended. Say you drag that story out where instead of that being the end, Gunther injures Dragon Lee and he comes back, whatever. I think people who complain at that matchup, not understanding, like, all right, clearly the plan was Ray and Ray got hurt, but you can't not have him on the card. People who think that way would understand. The morons who are like, oh, this isn't a Mania level match. You shouldn't have it on at all. No, don't listen to them. Don't go that route. I don't care. Like this guy is too big. You're going to be on ESPN. People are going to be watching on ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
And they already know who this guy is because he just retired John Cena. And some people are going to be like, hey, whatever the fuck happened to that guy? Oh, he's sitting in the front row watching a match. Oh, he's the host of WrestleMania. Oh, he was in the Andre Battle Royal Friday night. Like, what are we doing here? I the optimist in me is going to until that very last second. It's the same as when your football team is down multiple scores and you're like, well, I mean, we've got the ball. If we score quick, get the onside kick, score again, get a stop, then we've got the ball with a chance to tie it and just got to get the 2 point conversion. Like that's where I'm at right now with this Gunther story. We've got 3 weeks left.
Yeah.
Okay. A little over 3 weeks until I see, until I see the this show has concluded on Sunday night. I'm gonna keep holding out. We're getting something for Gunther.
Yeah, I mean, to play off the back of your football analogy, I'm praying for Tyler Loop to miss a field goal right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Game-ending field goal. Please fucking whip that shit. I'm hoping for Gunther to make the card, man. I'm gonna hit you with the hypothetical here, like a real deep cut hypothetical that is out there. But I mentioned briefly Jericho like being an idea just because he's not in AEW right now. He is, and who knows? Whatever. There's obviously been a lot of talk of him coming to WWE. Could it be a legend? Could a legend get Gunther? Like, does somebody? Is there anybody even that could come back and like put on a? Doesn't have to be a 10, 15, 20-minute match with Gunther, a 5-minute match, whatever. Is there somebody that could do that? Challenge him, answer the open challenge, whatever. What if this coming Monday or the next or the following week, whatever, the last week before Mania, what if Gunther does show up and he's in that ring and he's cutting a promo and those lights go out and that gong hits and we get a boneyard style Taker Gunther match? It sounds crazy. I don't fucking hate it. I don't hate it. Taker's obviously not putting on a
Yeah.
legitimate match, but like, and that is like you're breaking the thickest glass in case of emergency type situation. We're out of options here, though. That might you. I'm working for WWE. I might go ask Taker how he's feeling as of late.
Well, I've got a hypothetical for you.
Okay. Goldberg returns and beats him.
What if Gunther doesn't have a match?
Okay.
But what if he has a segment?
Mm-hmm.
What if he has a promo and he is in that spot where he's laughing at, he's dressed to the nine. He doesn't have an opponent because everyone was too scared.
Yeah.
And he is gung ho on retiring the next legend he can, whatever. What if he's in that shitty spot where he's going to leave that promo after looking up at the lights? What if he has the moment where he's in the ring and the glass shatters?
Yeah, it came to my mind too. I went with Taker instead of Stone Cold in that pitch just for the idea that if Taker was still in his prime, like that is a locked in Taker Mania match, Taker Gunther. Stone Cold is not far off of the pitch from Undertaker. I don't know how Stone Cold feels in terms of wrestling after last year. He had what, double knee surgery or replacement or whatever the hell he had. It's been a big reason as to why he wasn't at 40. I don't know if 38 was like the real last, but we're 4 years after the fact of Stone Cold facing Owens. I do think if Stone Cold had one more in him, it would have been like 39, 40, 41. 42 is like the last chance of it. It might sound crazy, but I think in this crazy hypothetical world we're in right now, Taker might be the more reasonable option. Taker, obviously, though, it's not '08 Taker anymore.
Yeah, I was more so saying like a segment, not an actual
The
match.
match. Yeah, I
He
mean, yeah,
gets a stunner,
yeah.
whatever. He Gunther makes fun of him, talks about his career ending early, whatever you name it. He gets stunned. crowd cheers,
Yeah.
whatever. It's a Gunther's gonna have those moments. I mean, he had it with Dragon Lee, where he's retired these guys, and he's gonna talk some shit and kind of like walk away as the loser of the segment.
Uh-huh.
If it happens with Stone Cold, like it can play off. He's disrespecting legends, and then that next person that he faces that he runs into is, hey, you were acting all high and mighty, and then Stone Cold met you and he stunned you and left you laying there. And Gunther, similar to his Pat McAfee situation. Well, now I've got a vendetta. Now I've got to take it to the next level, whatever. That feels like, man, that's the only option. But then again, at the very least, he'd be on TV cutting a promo, a vignette. There'd be more mention of him, anything to where it's okay. At least I feel he's going to be on the show. I know he's going to be there. They announced him for WWE World. He's going to be in Las Vegas. The odds that he's on the actual show slim by the day.
Yeah, they're getting slimmer and slimmer. I mean, listen, if it's going to be a segment for Gunther and it happens to be Stone Cold, that's probably up there for like the better end of the segments he could possibly have. But taking a stunner, he could choke Austin out. They could throw down some beers. It doesn't quite matter to me. It could be fun. It could be good, but it's still a bust to not have a Gunther match, is I guess the problem with any sort of segment. It ran through my mind too, not Stone Cold necessarily, but just a Gunther segment. He comes out and cuts a promo and says exactly what you said. I'm here. I don't have a match because everyone is too scared. And it's not an open challenge. Nobody answers it. And then they run the gambit the next couple of weeks of everybody being scared of Gunther. But it doesn't quite do it for me. You're in such a situation with Gunther that it is a match or bust. What if this is already like impossible because it's booked out? But what if they had decided 2 or 3 weeks ago, because Rey is injured, we're going to do Gunther Brock? If that would have been the match, what do you do with Oba? Don't get me wrong, we've been very, very on top of Oba versus Brock or nothing. But the best way to get Gunther on the card without Rey might have been that, because that is still very, very good. Gunther Brock is a must happen match before Brock is done. Probably one of the next careers killed by Gunther. And, again, we've been saying Oba Brock, Oba Brock, Oba Brock, but there's other options for Oba. There's maybe more options for Oba than there is Gunther, but it's just such a hard situation. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, I think I would not take that option.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm quite happy they're not doing
Yeah.
Gunther Brock because again with this whole being backed into a corner with the legend, career killer moniker, how can they face in Brock's career not be on the line?
Yeah.
Someone like that. It's if he faces Javon, I'm not expecting Javon's career to be on the line, same as Dragon Lee. But someone of Brock's age and stature, you're thinking, oh, this has to be for his career. And Gunther can't lose that match. So then, in turn, you're then having Brock retire, which, clearly that is not happening yet. Oba does feel in the spot where odds are he wins that match and by SummerSlam he is champion. And it feels like they're kind of sticking to this plan. Gunther, it sucks in the aspect of I know Gunther, he might not even be that upset not being on Mania because he retired Cena, and that pretty much was a Mania match in itself.
Yeah.
Like he has had his Mania moment. To us, where we look at it differently, where WrestleMania is still WrestleMania, you got to have this guy on the show. He might not feel that way. He truly might not give a fuck at all about it, which
Uh-huh.
fairs. You did retire 3 legends. You can feel however the fuck you want to feel. You're the greatest of all time. It feels Oba, they have the plan for right after Oba Brock.
Yeah.
And if they pulled away from that, it would heavily deter that plan. Gunther, they clearly had very few plans on what's happening for him after. And we've seen how it's kind of played out. and now you're in the corner with it. It goes to the analogy I made earlier. You don't take two people out of position to try to better it. You keep one playing their natural position. It does suck, but the ceiling is so high with Oba. It's got to be Oba beating Brock.
Mhm.
And who knows? In a few weeks' time, we might be looking at Oba as more the coveted match than Gunther, even though Gunther right now is the career killer. Gunther retired John Cena, you name it. If Oba squashes Brock Lesnar or beats him fairly quick or fairly convincingly, he's the money match. He's the guy people got to be chasing. And odds are he starts chasing the title, and even more people start chasing him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the flaw in running Brock, Gunther, and then Oba, Oba can get fucking stone cold as the replacement, whatever. Like that's obviously big, but there's a certain level of Brock right now and Oba, and like they come from the same archetype of wrestler in a way, like if you were to do Gunther, Brock, and Gunther beats Brock, retirement or not, whatever, like it doesn't necessarily level up Gunther too much more. Where Oba beating Brock, we have a fucking star on our hands, like a bigger star than Oba would be if he beat Stone Cold at Mania. As crazy as that sounds, like Oba and Brock needs to happen, so I'm glad it's happening. There is more story to be told for Oba after WrestleMania, and again, just that star making moment, like you lose that by having Brock face anybody else but Oba this year. So has to happen. I mean, I think we definitely ran through the potential opponents for Gunther. I really have no other names. There's nobody else in the world for him to face that like makes credible sense to me. Again, I guess there's always a legend that could come back. Rob Van Dam comes back, like whatever. But that we're getting crazy here with theories in that sense. Like I think the four names, the in no order, maybe five names like Penta, Javon, Phoenix, LA, and then a Royce Keys. Like some of those are deeper cuts than others. I'd be happy with any one of them because it gets Gunther a match. I'd be surprised if he has a match against anyone other than those five.
Yeah,
Ray,
really.
I guess, is still the option too, but I don't think Ray's coming back, as you said.
This is under the
Yeah,
assumption Ray is not good to
yeah.
go. Ray is not healthy. It sucks, but who knows? If they announce an hour before Gunther's going to have a match, I'm not going to be talking about how it's the greatest thing ever and the greatest book thing ever, but I'm not going to be sat here and be mad that it's happening.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be fickle. You can't be out here spending an hour talking about how you don't give a fuck. You just want to see him wrestle and win at WrestleMania because it's WrestleMania and he should be on the show and win, and then be upset when the match happens. One last thing on it,
Mhm.
and I'm kind of interested your thought. To me, this doesn't like I don't necessarily give a fuck about this, but I know there's people that do, and I'm wondering it. I don't think you are, but I'm gonna ask anyway. Is there also the aspect of this where Gunther needs a Mania match and a Mania win, also because his last Mania match was that match against Jay and he taps out, and this Mania is supposed to be washing away the stink of last year's Mania. And although we were supporters of Jay winning, and not by Gunther tapping out, but Jay winning the title, there's definitely still some like stink surrounding that match. Is there any part of you that is like, I need the last Gunther Mania match to be something else than that?
Um, I guess not necessarily in that wording. Like, I don't think I need Gunther to win this match at Mania because of like the loss against Jay and all that. But I need Gunther to win the Mania match simply because I need fucking Gunther to win the Mania match. Like I don't
Yeah.
almost know how else to put it. Like Gunther is at this point like the most credible wrestler in the world, realistically. Like he's been a champion, what, 80% of his time in WWE, or again, all the retired names. Like, but then you look at his Mania record and like he lost the IC title, he lost the world title. Like He doesn't have a great Mania record, so we have to get him up there as a credible Mania threat. There will never be a undefeated Undertaker streak Mania like that again, but Gunther is a guy that I'm sure has some time left, but also as he gets older, I'm sure the career is going to dwindle down and he won't be wrestling 5 days a week. Gunther will hit a point where he is a part timer. A lot of these wrestlers will. And you have an ability to establish Gunther as a like every year Mania opponent. Who gets Brock this Mania? Who gets Taker this Mania? Who gets Gunther this Mania? To help that, he's got to win some WrestleMania matches.
Yeah, he's got to have something to him. I know Shawn Michaels didn't have the greatest WrestleMania record, but he was
Record,
still
yeah.
Mr. WrestleMania. And the Shawn match was won, the Triple H match was won, the Taker match was won. If these guys weren't in the title matches, that's how Gunther. It's starting to stack up. The Roman match, the Punk match. Okay, they're facing each other. It cancels out. The Orton match, the Cody match. Okay, they're facing each other. It cancels each other out. Those are the types of names that guaranteed you would have on the card because their name needs to be on the card. That's what sells the merch. That's what sells the tickets. That's what puts butts in seats. Gunther is one of those names. The Gunther match is a Mania match. And it sucks that we're in this spot where Gunther may not have a Mania match. And I understand him defeating John Cena at WrestleMania or at
Saturday night's main event.
Saturday Night's Main Event. I almost called it Survivor Series at Saturday Night's Main Event was a WrestleMania in itself. But there's only one WrestleMania, and there's always only one WrestleMania. And we looked at it as he should have won the Rumble, and it should be Gunther Cody. And I understand. I am not upset by any means that Cody is facing Orton. I'm intrigued in that story. I'm locked in on that story. I'm invested in that story. But to bring it all back together, back to one of the things you said very early in this podcast, and one of the things we said as soon as it happens, they should have just had Gunther win the Rumble, and it would have been a lot better.
I can't really say it much better than that. Gunther should have won the Rumble. He had a WrestleMania level match against John Cena, retire John Cena. There is only one WrestleMania, though. So I'm hoping it pans out well for Gunther and he does get a match. There's also only one C2 Wrestling, and it's right here on YouTube. WrestleMania is only 3 weeks out. We obviously got a lot of content coming your guys' way. We're going to be hanging out. We're going to be talking shop with the boys. So come hang out. Subscribe to C2 Wrestling. Follow us on all the social media, Twitter, X, Instagram, all that. It's only a fun time. So don't be a coward.
Yeah, don't be a coward, or I hate you.
Bye.
You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Goodbye.